You know, we're always told that to fix today's big problems, we need to innovate. We need something totally new. But today, we're going to dig into a really fascinating and kind of counterintuitive idea. What if the most forward-thinking solutions are actually hiding in our past? Let's get into it.
Way back in the 19th century, Henry David Thoreau absolutely nailed this timeless human habit. We tend to just laugh off the past as being old-fashioned, but then we turn around and blindly follow whatever's new. And this chase for the new thing becomes its own sort of religion, one we rarely ever stop to question, even when it's not really working.
And that really gets to the heart of what we're talking about today. What if, in our huge rush to move forward, we've actually left behind some incredibly powerful, time-tested wisdom? What if looking backward is the most radical, most progressive thing we could possibly do?
Okay, so to really get this, we've got to start with the tools we use every day. Because our tools are never just neutral objects. No, they actively shape how we think. And in the end, they shape what we're even capable of creating.
And believe it or not, this is an ancient argument. Way back in ancient Greece, around 370 BC, the philosopher Plato was actually really worried about a brand new technology, writing. He thought it would just create an illusion of knowledge, that people could just recall facts without ever truly understanding them. Kind of sounds familiar, doesn't it? It's a perfect parallel for our own digital age. We don't want to be afraid of technology, but we should always reflect on how new technology can reshape the way we learn, think, and create, for better or worse. This kind of gets to the core trade-off. Think about it. Analog tools like a simple pencil and paper give you almost a total creative freedom. There's a real tactile connection to your work. Digital tools, on the other hand, for all their incredible power, can kind of funnel your thinking into these preset pathways. They can subtly shift you from being a creator to being more of a software operator. And that right there is the hidden trap. When we rely too much on our digital tools, it pushes us toward the slick, high-tech, complex solutions they were designed to make.
So if our modern tools can be a bit of a trap and we end up completely blind to simpler and more elegant approaches, where do we find better answers? Well, the solution might be right in front of us, or rather behind us in tradition. It might sound a little radical to our modern era, but mining the past can uncover centuries-old approaches that we can look at in new ways.
And we're going to see how traditional architecture, for example, gives us some potential answers to 4 of our biggest modern problems. The 2023 RIBA Gold Medal winner, Yasmin Lari, an architect in Pakistan, is just one pioneer out there rediscovering the past in her work. She focuses on disaster relief and emphasizes zero-carbon, low-cost structures using local materials with traditional techniques adapted for resilience. Now, that's radical tradition. Let's take these problems one by one.
First up, our throwaway culture. In modern construction, we so often build for novelty and not for the long haul. We use these incredibly energy-intensive materials like concrete and steel to build things with a surprisingly short lifespan. And all of that contributes to a huge environmental footprint. Modern buildings account for 40% of energy consumption in the US, and adding high-tech gizmos to a high-energy building can only do so much. So what's the traditional answer? It's all about real sustainability. It's about using durable materials that you can find locally, or using clever passive design, like natural ventilation, that works with the climate instead of fighting against it. It's a completely different mindset. As UVU students discover in traditional Greek villages, you can design things to be repaired, to last for generations, not just to be torn down and replaced.
Next up, the housing affordability crisis. This is a massive, massive challenge, right? And a lot of modern design and suburban planning choices have actually made it worse, creating cities that are expensive and totally out of reach for so many people. The profession has become almost totally detached from the housing needs of everyday people, and we're driving ourselves deeper into debt with our car-oriented planning. But the traditional approach hits affordability right where it counts. It encourages mixed-use communities where people can live and work, which bolsters local economies. It uses simpler, proven building techniques that cost less and even empowers people in the community to take part in the building process themselves, as UVU students discovered touring main streets in the American West.
Okay, problem number 3. This sea of sameness we see everywhere. You know what I'm talking about. The so-called international style, or form follows function, from 100 years ago. That gave us all these glass boxes and concrete towers, which get dumbed down to strip malls and office parks that honestly could be anywhere in the world. It completely erases local character and leaves us with this feeling of placelessness. But here's a beautiful paradox. The traditional solution is the true international style. And why is that? Because it's deeply, unapologetically local. And it celebrates the unique history, the materials, the craftsmanship of a specific place. And that's what creates architecture in a traditional neighborhood like Provo, Utah, that feels authentic, diverse, and has a real soul.
And finally, let's talk about our health. Modern life, with its endless urban sprawl, discourages walking, and we spend most of our lives sealed up in artificial offices. Buildings often cut us off from fresh air and nature. All of that has a very real, very negative effect on both our physical and our mental well-being. Traditional design at its core is human-centered design. It creates walkable communities. It brings nature in our lives using ideas from biophilic design, which is just a fancy term for a simple truth that we humans have a deep innate need to connect with the natural world. By focusing on things like natural light, real materials, and a human scale, we can create places that don't just shelter us, they actually nurture us, like students discover in the houses by Bernard Maybeck in Berkeley.
Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, right? But what does it actually look like when you want to learn how to do it? Well, let's take a look at how one place, Utah Valley University, is bringing these ideas to life in a second-year architecture studio. They use this hybrid workflow. So students start with the old school analog tools. They're out there sketching on site. They're digging into history. Then they develop their ideas using hand drawings and physical models. It's only at the very end that they decide the best tools to present their work, whether that's digital, analog, or a mix. It ensures the tool is always serving the idea and not the other way around.
Their first project goes right at those big problems of sustainability and affordability. Students have to design a home and affordable secondary unit, what's often called an ADU, that fits respectfully into an existing historic neighborhood near campus. They literally have to learn how to be a good neighbor with their architecture. Next, they take a huge leap across the ocean to Paris. Here, the challenge is all about building in a dense city and a culture that is very different from what they grew up with. They have to design a townhouse on a really complex irregular site, which forces them to wrestle with a rich, centuries-old architectural tradition.
And for their final project, they bring it all back home, sorry for the pun, focusing on human health and our connection to the land. Students design a rural estate that includes a working farm, which gets them thinking about agricultural history and how to design buildings that truly strengthen our bond with nature and history beyond our lifetimes.
So after going through all these problems, these traditional solutions, and these real-world projects, what's the big takeaway? Well, it means we have to completely rethink what innovation even means. It really boils down to this. True progress isn't about old versus new. It's not just a choice between tradition or technology. It's about creating a synthesis. It's about having the wisdom to look at all of human history and pick the very best tools, the very best ideas to solve the challenges that we're facing right here, right now.
And that leaves us with one last question to chew on in our own lives and in our own careers and our own communities. What timeless essential ideas maybe we've forgotten about in our constant search for what's next? What radical traditions are just sitting there waiting for us to rediscover them?